And so
Elon,
I think
Elon's just joined
Elon's here,
us.
by the way, Mark. Just
Hey.
letting you know as well.
Sure.
Hey guys.
Yeah, good.
Hey,
Hey, Elon.
how's it going?
It's going good overall. How are you guys doing?
Fantastic.
Good.
Great to have
Talking
you.
about
Amazing.
talking about AI and whether we should be scared or not. Mark is pretty optimistic about it.
Well, I think we should be. I think a mixture of positive and negative sentiment. I think is probably wise. Like we should be concerned about AI going wrong, but also it will. I mean, it's going to be amazing and scary, obviously. So, some of it is perhaps inevitable. So you may as well, if something is inevitable, might as well focus on the positive side.
We discussed as well earlier, we were having a chat about your tweets and your transparency. Like I asked Mark, is Elon just strategic with his tweets? And then Mark answered pretty openly, like, look, man, anything Elon tweets reflects our discussions 100%. So like we're seeing what you're doing on Twitter as an experiment. Everyone's looking at as an experiment. How's it going so far? Are you enjoying the response?
Yeah, I think overall it's good. There's it's going to be it's a roller coaster, so there's going to be some ups and downs. As long as the long-term trend is up, it's going to be good. And I think Twitter is trending in a positive direction. Like we're seeing a lot more engagement, and anecdotally, and also in the sort of user average minutes. Like we're seeing like higher user engagement. People are saying it's more fun. But what do you guys think?
Fun. Oh, it's way more fun. I love it. I love it. It's like I log on every day and it's just pure entertainment. Thank you.
And Mark's answer was really interesting. Elon, he said that everyone's looking at it. Mark, I'll let you actually. What was your answer to the question? Like, how's the response of other platforms and other players in the space on the complete transparency by Elon on Twitter?
Yeah, so I've told Elon this already, but yeah, no, I mean, look, every other tech CEO I talk to is watching this whole thing like a hawk. and they're all learning on the fly, watching what's happening, and they're all like, I'd say, very carefully taking notes and trying to figure out how they can use the results of Elon's work and figure out how to apply to their own companies.
Elon, I've got a question for you before I go to Alex.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've got questions for you too. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll ask my question. Then we go to Ian and Alex. Elon, my question is about spaces. Where do you see spaces in the next, let's say, 6 to 12 months?
Well, Spaces works better than I anticipated because I was like, is this thing actually worth it or not?
Can I say do I have the right to say you're welcome or no? Too early.
Sure. Thanks.
No, joking.
We'll save it for when he does Tesla earnings.
It's actually clearly way better than I thought. And I like the fact that sort of you're on Twitter and then it shows that Spaces is active with people that you follow and stuff, and you can just hop in and talk, just off the cuff. It's pretty cool. I think we need to be better about saving interesting spaces and making them easier to find.
So yeah, there's no way to search.
Yeah, exactly. It should be on search. So it's like if you say the top 1% of Spaces conversations of the year is probably epic,
Yeah.
So, and I think we were thinking Spaces internationally and have Spaces internationally and get that translated. That would be a future cool thing.
There should probably be a way to save, save conversations and a way to even search those, right? Because right now, the only way to do that is to, Kim.com had a bunch of really great spaces, but the only way to search for them is to go through his timeline, and, it can be hard to find.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We need to make them easy to find. In general, search on Twitter is terrible, and we need to make it much better.
What's working well, Elon, not sure if you saw that earlier, we've done a lot of spaces, we're testing different things. What's working really well is breaking news. So whenever something happens, I've got my team watching everything 24/7. They wake me up. That seems to be working best, because it's so different to podcasts and YouTube streams. So breaking news, and we were thinking about trying to cover the World Cup as well. We didn't do it eventually, but that was one of the things we were looking at doing. Ian, did you have any other questions before we go to the panel?
Yes. So, you were at the Dave Chappelle thing a couple of days ago, and there was this, this narrative is that you've been booed by everyone, and when I say everyone, I'm putting that in quotes. And it's like it should be obvious to everybody that wasn't everyone. What kind of reception did you actually receive?
Yeah, I mean, okay, I mean, this could be obviously, this is just my perception standing on the stage. And like, you know, I'm friends with Chappelle and with Chris, and I've known them for a long time, especially Dave. And, you know, I've always loved his work. So, you know, we were just like hanging out beforehand, and it's like, well, you know, it would be like totally bizarre if like I came on stage, and they're like, yeah, that's cool, let's do it. And so that was, I really decided to go to the show, or even knew about the show like a few hours beforehand. So then it was just like standing there ad hoc, and you know, it was just it's like an interesting situation. Obviously, I made some controversial decisions, especially as viewed by those who live in San Francisco. And so I wouldn't expect my fan club to be 100%, even at a Chappelle show. So, you know, so then I think there's like an interesting sort of group dynamic thing that happens where if like one person starts booing, it sort of encourages others to boo. And, you know, and then you get sort of like this weird group dynamic happening. The same thing happens on Twitter, just with text. But I think in retrospect, I should have encouraged the booing and said like, come on, guys, you call that a boo? Please, try harder. Boo, give me all together now. Boo, come on, you can do it. You can do it. That's a feeble boo. Come on, give us a good belly boo. You know, from the bellow a boo.
Yeah.
I think everyone's cheering that is in jail right now, though.
Like, boo, 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 boo,
I wanted to ask
boo,
you more about that.
Anyway, yeah, SBF definitely needs an adult timeout in the big house, as I said. You know, it's like, come on, man. It's like there are people in prison for like stealing a car for like a $5,000 car, and they're in prison. That's if someone's like runs off with like billions of dollars, there's like they should do some time. It's not right that others who steal smaller things should be in prison and they're not. You know, I don't think we need to like, you know, have the guy be in prison for life, but he should, you know.
He probably will be.
Yeah, I doubt it.
Yeah, maybe not. I don't know.
I doubt it. I mean, but you know, but it should obviously it would be an outrage if there was no punishment. And so like some number of years of you know, in being stuck in a, you know, all expenses paid federal vacation. And look on the bright side. And you know, and then just whatever, pay penalty to society. Actually, you know, genuinely be sorry, and then you know, then he can rejoin society.
I think he's going to feel pretty bad because he won't be able to play any League of Legends while in prison. That seems to be his number one hobby.
He sucks at it anyway.
He does suck at it. Yeah.
Did you see Elon? Did you see the narrative on TV by a few high-profile individuals that were, you know, supportive of Sam in some ways? Is Sam just a really good manipulator with his interviews? Do you think there's some truth? Not sure if you've heard his recent interviews. Could it be a mistake, or just, you know, is his bullshit meter went off again?
Listen, I don't know. No matter how you cut it, the dude like has not been honest with people's money and stole them a bunch of money. Like, this is no other way to interpret that. Like, obviously, you know, there's got to be some appropriate punishment here. That is, you know, I actually don't think it should be like life in prison or whatever, but it shouldn't be nothing. I'm not the judge, but like 5 years to 10 years, something.
Maybe. Might be too little compared to Bernie Madoff, right? He got 150 years.
Yeah, I think Bernie Madoff, they're basically saying like, this guy's, you know, unless he is Methuselah, he's not gonna, you know. The actual number of years doesn't matter that much because he's pretty old. So SBF's not that old, so he could actually spend 50 years in prison.
Yeah,
but should he spend 50 years in prison? Probably that's too much. I'm not afraid. I'm not.
It seems to me
here,
he's very young, right? I mean, he should have a chance to make mistakes, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm the judge, I would say like 5 years with good behavior. I'm not the who am I? I'm not the judge. 10 years if you're not. 10 years with bad behavior. Like 5 years if you do your best to actually get the money back, and aren't a phony asshole about it, and then 10 years if you hide the money, or longer if you actually hide the money.
Doesn't that feel too lenient, Elon? Like if it was only 5 years, I would go attempt it. Like not actually, but like you know what I'm saying.
Like I said, I'm not the judge here. I'm like what I know. It's a best case. It shouldn't be less than that. But probably not life either. Like it's like serious punishment, but give the guy some chance of repentance and a comeback.
So I have a question, and this one's from Kristen Ruby. I think you tweeted at her the other day when she was getting some inside leaks from some engineer at Twitter. She's asking, and I'm asking this too, has the AI been retrained? Because right now, I mean, based on the leaks, we have all this information that was basically automatically censoring people through the algorithm. And since you've taken over, have you guys like retrained it so it's not so censorious?
We have made some changes to the algorithm, but not. I mean, they're relatively subtle. I think my instructions to the team is like just show people interesting stuff, and that the right metric I think to focus on is maximize the number of unregretted user minutes. So, and like if you're going to focus on any metric, I think that's the right one. Because so like a frequent criticism I hear of TikTok is that I spent like 2 hours on TikTok, but I regret it, and so we don't want that, So if you have unregretted user minutes, that's it can be a little nebulous to figure that out, but that's I think the right thing to aspire to. And unregretted user minutes are where you learned things, you were entertained, it was funny. You're not going to regret those minutes,
Yeah, absolutely.
I see your hand up, Eric. Eric, you got to unmute. Otherwise, we'll go to Brian. Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, hey Elon. I was just wondering, is there a possibility that in the future you could decentralize the database of Twitter, or at least open it up so others could build upon it? Like, I feel that it could maybe be a solution to the whole censorship debate. If like Twitter was you ban or block somebody on their front end, another front end like brianstwitter.com could then tie into the database and bring that content up at my own risk.
Maybe. I don't know. There are various like other ways to view Twitter besides the Twitter client. But I'm like open to a lot of different ideas to evolve Twitter over time. The short-term actions have obviously been just like let's just get the company to a financially healthy position, especially given that like we're headed into a recession and advertising will be disproportionately affected. Especially advertising where you can't make a clear ROI argument, and like weirdly, this is gonna blow your mind. Twitter for the longest time was really had the advertising engine was maximizing irrelevance. That will actually resonate with you if you have noticed that for most long-time Twitter users have never bought a product ever on Twitter. And you have to say, like, well, doesn't that seem a little strange? Because why wouldn't you have accidentally bought a product on Twitter? It's because the advertising has been maximizing irrelevance. So why would it maximize relevance? Because a lot of the ads traditionally at Twitter were sold on a cost per impression basis, and if you do that, you actually don't want people to dwell on or click into an ad because it will reduce the total number of impressions. So you actually want the ads to be as irrelevant as possible, so that you get the most number of, in quotes, impressions, and roughly 25% of Twitter's entire compute budget is spent on maximizing irrelevance, or at least it was until a few weeks ago, where we've started to turn the ship in that regard significantly. So you might actually in the last week or two possibly have bought or even thought about buying a product from an ad that you saw on Twitter. So it took me a while to actually even understand this, and because there was like head exploding emoji, I cannot freaking believe that we would spend 25% of the compute budget on, it's like roughly 130,000 servers, maximizing irrelevance. But it makes total sense if you think about your Twitter usage, because I bet most people here on this call have never bought anything on Twitter, or if they did, it was only in recent weeks. And that's why, because it was actually very good at making sure that the ad was not relevant.
Wow.
The sheer amount of Mike Judge comedy material that we have is insane. In fact, so Mike Judge is a friend of mine, and he lives just outside Austin.
I love his films.
Yeah, he is awesome. So I like texted Mike and said, "Hey, Mike, we got some epic material for some new show if you want to do it." And so hopefully Mike Judge comes by Twitter. He said he might come by like next month or something. So that'd be cool.
Make a series out of it.
Like honestly, we've got enough material for like many seasons here.
Running a social media company from the ground up, from the Jack days.
Yeah, I just love that the media has to come here just to get their talking points. It's amazing. And that you keep coming to spaces, so they have to come here rather than you going to the media. It's perfect.
Our spaces. I love it. Thanks, Elon. You're the best.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's quite entertaining. Arguably the worst thing you can make is to be boring. That's
you do a good job at not being boring.
Yeah,
I will actually
problematic nowadays.
I'm really knocking it out of the park and not being boring.
I've got a tough question for you. Elon, what would you say is your biggest concern, if there is one, on your current strategy with Twitter, on the free speech strategies? My guess will be advertisers.
We did have some advertisers pause because they're like, a lot of them are kind of conservative and they're like worried about because for a lot of advertisers, they're like basing their decisions off what they read in the press as opposed to what is the platform actually doing, Mm-hmm. And so that's why I was like, okay. So I've had a lot of calls with the big advertisers and said like, look, you should just base your opinion on Twitter of what you see on Twitter, not what you read in the newspaper. And in some ways, Twitter and the newspapers are competing because the newspapers competing, or on the mainstream media is competing for your attention. Twitter's competing for your attention. So there's an attention competition here. So you got to be like, when you're reading in the media, other media, you're actually reading. Think about it like a competitor's opinion of Twitter, and then you're like, oh, okay, maybe that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I said they should judge it by their actual experience on Twitter. And I think actual experience on Twitter is that things have improved dramatically. That's my observation. And even in the last
positive. It's so much more positive nowadays. Like people are actually having fun. They're joining spaces. I've seen so many spaces prop up, and it's just people having chats about nothing, and it's fine, right? Like they love having chats. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Some people who take themselves too seriously. They get knickers in a knot type of thing. And it's like, but and then they do that on Twitter and they like go on a tirade and whatever, which is fine. Do it on Twitter. That's cool.
Increases user engagement.
I love it when people complain about Twitter on Twitter.
Yeah, they're not doing it on Mastodon or whatever site they're going to. It's on Twitter.
Because it's too boring because no one's listening.
Yeah, just screaming into the void.
Yeah, it's screaming into the void. Like just go into an empty room and complain. The complainers have to have somebody. They have to complain to someone.
Yeah.
There's the irony, and then tweeting about leaving Twitter. Like, do they not see the irony?
No.
Yeah, apparently not.
They don't. So I actually have a super good question from Kristen. It's a follow-up to the last one. She asked regarding the data she's reviewing, that was leaked by a former person at Twitter. I don't think they work there anymore. It shows, it showed clear bias in the AI towards conservatives. How can you ensure that the AI won't be used in this way moving forward, like for political, for censoring political speech? And based on the data that was leaked, do you believe that political bias existed regarding how Twitter was monitored, how it monitored political misinformation? So that's like two questions, I guess.
Well, first of all, Twitter's AI is extremely primitive, so I wouldn't read too much into it.
Okay.
I think we will improve AI. Oh my God, this is not really a word we should be using for the Twitter algorithm. Okay, That's not the case. It's really a very, very simple ML that Twitter is using. If I compare it to say like Tesla Autopilot, oh my god, it's like orders of magnitude simpler. So we'll improve that a lot over time. And like I said, our goal is going to be maximize undergraded user minutes. So you're like maximally informed and entertained. And it'll be good to expose people to different points of view, so you don't just, hopefully people are, open to that or become more open to that over time. It's like, at least listen to the arguments from the other side and don't just demonize them and assume that everything they say is just evil. I think people should be open to having their mind changed once in a while. And or at least understanding those they oppose better. What's the harm in that? At least understanding those with different viewpoints. That seems like a good thing. And you can still disagree with them afterwards, but at least you know where they're coming from. But obviously, historically, I'm just stating anyone who was a casual observer of Twitter, that Twitter was extremely heavily biased towards the left. The Twitter wasn't just drinking the Kool-Aid; it was swimming in the Kool-Aid.
It was pumping out the water.
It's like asking the fish, like, hey, do you see water? Like, what water? Like, you're in it, man. it's all water.
In a similar vein, Sebastian Gorka here, Mr. Musk. It's been reported that you want to turn Twitter into like a super app like WeChat. Would you address concerns of those who say that's very exciting, but to prevent that abuse in a similar vein we've seen in China, especially if you're not running Twitter, what do you say to those who worry that could be abused?
Well, that's like honestly a high-class problem because we've got a long way to go before we're at anywhere like that. But I do think the succession problems are a real issue because it matters who's running the place, But I can say like, okay, like the things I can only do the things that are within my control. I'm trying to say, like, what set of actions can I do that are maximally useful, and that will be to make Twitter more and more useful, more and more entertaining. Doing the dead nuts obvious stuff like adding long form video, monetization for creators.
Yes, please.
It's a no-brainer. The stuff's like no-brainer moves.
Are you working with anyone on this? Like any big YouTubers are contributing? I'm sure they have a lot of ideas.
The key is I've just got to get the engine of engineering at Twitter working. So because you can have a million good ideas, but if you can't implement them from a software standpoint, it doesn't matter.
Right.
So it's like I said, most of the stuff that needs to be done is extremely obvious, and I think frankly like a 12-year-old could tell you what needs to happen. It's not like you don't need Einstein here.
No.
But we need to actually have be able to evolve the software rapidly so that good ideas can actually be implemented. And the software stack at Twitter is a Django pile of insanity. If anyone has actually been exposed to it, it's like, holy smokes. This is not an easy thing to evolve. That's why simple features take a long time.
Is this something that you would consider, crowdsourcing by opening up the API?
No, it's not about opening. We've got to fix the fundamental core stack.
Oh, okay. The basic stuff.
Yeah, like there's a. I won't bore everyone. In fact,
Go ahead.
I've got a sorry, Tesla. Speaking of Tesla, I have a Tesla meeting that I'm late for. I have to step off.
Oh boy.
I'll ask you before you start, Elon, I have one last question. Actually, two quick questions. First, about your White Rabbit tweet. A lot of people are DMing me about this. I haven't seen it, so I'm not sure what it's about. And then the second one, which I always so that's the first one, and then the second one should be a very easy one. We're doing a COVID
Elon,
space, getting a lot of
question in about Tesla because I'm very concerned as an investor.
Guys, he's got to go.
We gotta go. Eric, Elon jumps in all the time. Eric, I promise you I'll invite you next time he's in. Elon, if I bring Fauci to the space, we're talking to his team. We're getting a whole bunch of doctors. If I do, shit, he dropped out. Fuck. I wanted to ask him. Yeah, I wanted to ask him. I wanted to ask him if he'll.
He already left at the